Listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you will rearrange the way you walk into every conversation for the rest of your life. Most men lose the argument before a single word leaves their mouth. They lose it in the eyes. They lose it in the breath. They lose it in the small, desperate need to be understood by someone who never planned to understand them. You think you are fighting with logic, but you are bleeding from emotion, and your opponent smells it the moment you open the door. That is the first truth Machiavelli would carve into your spine. The man who needs to win has already lost, because need is the leash they pull. Every time you raise your voice, you hand them the throne. Every time you over-explain, you confess your fear. Every time you chase their approval mid-fight, you become the smaller man wearing the bigger words. Power is not loud. Power is not fast. Power does not flinch when insulted, does not flush when cornered, does not beg the room to see its side. Power watches. Power waits. Power lets the other man drown in the silence he tried to fill with noise. From this moment forward, you will stop arguing like a wounded boy and start moving like a quiet strategist who already knows the ending. You will learn the art of the savage reply, not the loud one, the surgical one, the one that lands without effort, the one that leaves the room rearranged, the one that makes them remember you long after the conversation dies. Because the goal was never to win the argument. The goal was always to become the kind of man no one dares to argue with twice. And that transformation begins right now. The first law, kill the emotion, keep the mind. Before you ever learn a single line, a single comeback, a single piece of verbal warfare, you must learn this. The man who controls his face controls the fight. Emotion is the loudest leak in your armor, and most men walk around bleeding from it without ever knowing why they keep losing. The moment your jaw tightens, they have read you. The moment your voice climbs, they have measured you. The moment your eyes narrow with offense, they have located the wound, and they will return to it again and again until you crack. Machiavelli understood something the modern man has forgotten. Feelings are not weakness, but feelings displayed at the wrong moment are suicide. The cold mind is the throne. The hot heart is the dungeon. So when the insult comes, you do not flinch. When the accusation lands, you do not rush to deny. When the room turns toward you waiting for the reaction, you give them nothing but stillness. And that stillness becomes a wall they cannot climb. Train yourself in private so you can rule in public. Watch your breath when someone tests you. Slow it, deepen it. Let your shoulders drop while theirs rise. Let your voice fall while theirs sharpens. The contrast alone will rewrite who holds the room. A man who cannot be provoked cannot be ruled, and a man who cannot be ruled cannot be defeated. You will begin to notice something almost cruel in its beauty. The calmer you become, the more unhinged they reveal themselves to be. Their volume becomes their confession. Their panic becomes your proof. And while they exhaust themselves trying to shake a statue, you stand there untouched, unbothered, unreachable, watching them bury themselves with the very emotion they tried to hand to you. The weapon of silence. There is a sound more terrifying than any insult ever spoken, and that sound is nothing at all. Silence is the blade most men never learn to hold, because silence demands a discipline they do not possess. They feel the pause and rush to fill it. They feel the stillness and panic into speech. They mistake quiet for weakness, when in truth, quiet is the highest form of dominance a man can wear in a room full of noise. When someone attacks you, do not answer immediately. Let the words hang in the air like smoke. Let the room feel the weight of your refusal to react. Watch what happens. The attacker begins to shift, to repeat himself, to soften, to explain, to negotiate with a wall that gave him nothing to push against. That is the law Machiavelli whispered through centuries of power. The man who speaks last speaks heaviest, and the man who speaks least is feared most. Silence forces the other person to keep talking, and a man who keeps talking eventually exposes his hand, his fear, his motive, his weakness. You do not need to dismantle him. You simply need to wait, and he will dismantle himself, searching for a reaction you refuse to give. Practice the long pause. Practice the steady stare. Practice the slow blink that says, "I heard you." And you are smaller than you think. When you finally do speak, your words will carry the weight of every second you withheld them, and the room will lean in because they have learned that your voice is rare, and rare things are valuable. Loud men are forgotten by morning. Quiet men are remembered for years. Choose your silence like a soldier chooses his bullets, with patience, with precision, and with the certainty that one is enough. Reading the opponent's wounds. Every man who walks into a fight is carrying a wound he hopes you will not find, and your power lies in finding it before he ever opens his mouth. This is the dark art the world refuses to teach you. People do not argue about what they say they are arguing about. They argue from the bruise underneath. The loud man is loud because he was once unheard. The mocker mocks because he fears being mocked. The man who calls you arrogant is the man who never built the confidence he envies. The one who accuses you of being cold is the one starving for warmth he cannot ask for. Machiavelli did not study men's words. He studied the gap between their words and their eyes, because that gap is where the truth lives. Watch how a man's voice catches when a certain topic is raised. Watch which insult he repeats too often, because the insult he uses most is the insult he fears most. Watch his hands when he claims confidence. Watch his laughter when it arrives a half-second too late. These are the tells, the cracks in the armor, the soft underbelly every loud man pretends he does not have. You do not exploit these wounds with cruelty. Cruelty is for amateurs. You simply hold awareness of them like a card you never have to play, because the moment you see a man clearly, you stop fearing him. Knowledge of his fracture is your shield. You stop reacting to his attacks because you understand they were never about you. They were confessions dressed as accusations. And once you see this, truly see this, you will walk through every argument like a doctor walking through a hospital, surrounded by pain, but no longer afraid of it. The strategic question, the scalpel of the calm man. When the world hands you an attack, the weak man defends, the angry man counterattacks, but the dangerous man asks a question. This is the scalpel Machiavelli would place in your hand, and it is sharper than any insult you could ever rehearse. A question reverses the gravity of the room. A question takes the weight of the accusation and places it back onto the shoulders of the one who threw it. While he came armed with noise, you arrive armed with curiosity, and curiosity is the most disarming weapon a calm man can carry. When someone says you are arrogant, do not deny it. Ask him what he means by that. Ask him when he first felt that. Ask him if he believes confidence and arrogance are the same thing. Watch him fumble. Watch him search for an answer he never prepared. Watch the room turn slowly toward him, because suddenly he is the one being examined. The strategic question is not interrogation, it is invitation. An invitation for the attacker to reveal more of himself than he intended to. A defended man hides. A questioned man exposes. And every word he adds while trying to justify his attack is another rope he ties around his own conviction. Never raise your voice. Never sharpen your tone. Ask softly, slowly, with the patience of a man who has all the time in the world, because that patience itself becomes a kind of pressure he cannot escape. The strategic question turns arguments into mirrors, and most men cannot stand the sight of themselves under steady light. So when the attack comes, do not swing back. Do not flinch. Tilt your head, lower your voice, and ask the one quiet question that forces him to dismantle the very weapon he was holding. Frame control. Whoever owns the reality owns the room. Every conversation has an invisible architecture, a hidden frame that decides whose reality the room is standing inside, and most men lose their fights because they agreed to argue inside someone else's blueprint. Frame control is the Machiavellian art of refusing to play the game you were handed and quietly building a new one beneath the feet of everyone present. When a man attacks you, he is not just throwing words. He is offering you a frame, a definition of the moment in which he is the judge and you are the accused. The untrained man steps inside that frame and starts defending himself within rules he did not write. The dangerous man does something else entirely. He pauses, he recognizes the frame, and then he replaces it. If he calls the conversation a fight, you call it a misunderstanding worth examining. If he calls you irrational, you call the moment a chance to slow down and look at the actual facts. If he frames himself as the victim, you frame the room as adults who are above theatrics. You never argue inside his definitions, because the moment you accept his words, you accept his throne. Speak slowly enough that your reality has weight. Speak certainly enough that your reality has gravity. Do not announce that you are reframing. Simply behave as if your version of the moment is already the truth, and watch the room drift toward your axis. Whoever defines the situation defines the outcome. Whoever names the moment owns the moment. Machiavelli understood that power is not seized by force alone. It is seized by the quiet authorship of reality itself. So stop defending your place in their story and start writing the story they are forced to stand inside. Weaponized calm, the smile that ends wars. There is a kind of calm that is not peace, and the moment you understand the difference, you will become unbearable to provoke. Most men confuse calm with passivity, but weaponized calm is something else entirely. It is the steady eye of a predator who has already decided how this ends. It is the slow voice that does not climb. It is the half smile that arrives at the exact moment the other man expected your fury. It is the relaxed shoulders standing across from his clenched fists, the unhurried breath answering his rising chest, the soft tone replying to his shouted accusation. This calm is not the absence of power, it is the concentration of it. Machiavelli knew that nothing terrifies a loud man more than a quiet man who refuses to match his temperature, because volume only works when it is mirrored. The moment you refuse to rise, the moment you smile gently while he screams, the moment your voice drops as he climbs, you have stolen the entire dynamic from him without lifting a finger. He will feel it before he understands it. He will feel small without knowing why. He will feel foolish in front of the room without being able to name the cause. That is the genius of weaponized calm. It does not announce itself. It simply rearranges the gravity of the moment until he is performing and you are presiding. Train your face to soften when others harden. Train your voice to slow when others accelerate. Train your eyes to hold contact a beat longer than is comfortable. Calm is not what you feel. Calm is what you wear, and worn correctly, it becomes armor that no insult can pierce, and a weapon that no attacker can outlast. Never defend, always redirect. The moment you start defending yourself, you have already confessed. This is the trap most men fall into without realizing it. They believe that explaining clears their name, that justifying proves their innocence, that piling words on top of an accusation will somehow make the accusation disappear. It does the opposite. Every defense you offer is a brick you hand the attacker, and he will use those bricks to build a taller wall around your reputation. Machiavelli understood that explanation is the language of the cornered man, and the cornered man has already lost the room. So you must learn the art of the redirect, the quiet pivot that turns every accusation into a question he must answer, every insult into a mirror he must face, every attack into territory he did not prepare to defend. When he says you are selfish, you do not list your sacrifices. You ask him why that word is the first one he reached for. When he says you are weak, you do not flex your strength. You observe out loud how often he seems to need you to be smaller. The redirect does not deny the attack, because denial dignifies it. The redirect simply moves the spotlight, and the spotlight is the only real weapon in any argument. He came to put you under examination, and within seconds he finds himself the one being examined. Notice how the loud men in your life always demand answers but never offer them. That is the trick, and now you know how to reverse it. You are not here to prove yourself to people who arrived with their verdict already written. You are here to make them realize, slowly and uncomfortably, that the trial they tried to start has somehow turned around, and they are now standing in the witness box. The walk away, the ultimate power move. Not every battle deserves your blood, and the man who has not learned this will spend his life bleeding for arguments no one will remember. The walk away is the most misunderstood weapon in the arsenal, because the untrained man sees it as surrender, when in truth it is the highest form of dominance a human being can perform. To walk away is to declare, without a single word, that the conversation is no longer worthy of your presence, that the man across from you has not earned the privilege of your time, that the room itself has fallen beneath the standard of your attention. Machiavelli knew that engagement is currency, and you do not spend currency on men who cannot match its value. When you sense the conversation has turned into theater, when you realize he is no longer arguing to understand, but performing to wound, when you see that his goal is not resolution but exhaustion, you do not escalate, you exit. Calmly, slowly, without slamming doors, without dramatic exits, without the loud goodbye of a man who needs the last word. The dangerous man simply rises, offers a quiet nod, and removes himself from a stage that no longer deserves his performance. And here is the secret the loud man will never understand. The one who walks away first walks away most powerful, because he has demonstrated that his peace is not for sale, that his attention is not infinite, that his presence is a privilege and not a guarantee. The room will feel his absence longer than it ever felt his words. He becomes the ghost in the conversation, the man they keep replaying in their head days after the fight ended. Walk away, not in defeat, but in the cold certainty that some battles are won by refusing to fight them at all. The final test: become untouchable. You have walked through 9 doors, and the man standing here at the end is not the man who began this monologue. You came in reactive, defensive, eager to win, and you are leaving something colder, sharper, quieter, and infinitely more dangerous. You now understand that the loud man loses, the emotional man bleeds, the defending man confesses, and the explaining man kneels. You now understand that silence is a blade, that calm is a weapon, that questions are scalpels, that frames are kingdoms, and that walking away is the throne most men are too weak to sit on. Machiavelli did not write his laws so you could memorize them. He wrote them so you could become them. So from this night forward, you stop arguing like a boy and start moving like a strategist who has already seen the ending. You stop chasing the last word and start owning the long silence. You stop bleeding for opinions, stop kneeling for approval, stop performing for rooms that were never going to clap for you anyway. You become untouchable, not because no one attacks you, but because no attack reaches the man you have built underneath. Now I want you to do one thing before you leave. Drop a comment with a single empowering phrase, your own personal war cry, the words you will whisper to yourself the next time someone tries to test your peace. Make it sharp, make it yours. Let it live in the comments as proof that the man you were is no longer the man you are becoming. And if this monologue rearranged something inside you, hit that like button, subscribe to walk this path with me, and turn on notifications so the next lesson finds you the moment it drops. The world will keep testing you. Make sure, from tonight forward, it never finds you unprepared again.